Hello, everyone. I am Kimberly Calhoun, one of the founders of Pod TV, and I'd like to invite you to join us on Timeshare Solutions or Surrender with Irene Parker, where we are approaching and addressing a huge issue that keeps growing bigger and bigger in our country, and that is the deceptive acts of timeshares. That's not to say all timeshares are deceptive, but what we're trying to do is bring people aware to look at your contracts, what to look for, what to listen to. But some of these stories, they're very horrifying. People go on vacation, you're supposed to enjoy yourself, and you end up with a lifetime imprisonment of a timeshare financial debt that you can't get out of. And sometimes your kids inherit. But Irene's very good at looking at these problems, addressing them. We're on episode 13. I'm so proud to announce that we have actually helped people with some do-it-yourself solutions. And you know what? I don't think Irene surrenders. Welcome, Irene.
Hello, it's very nice to be back. And the one problem you mentioned, though, is you talk about the importance of reading your contract and understanding what's in it. Well, the problem with that is there are some things that you cannot determine by reading your contract. One of those is availability. Later on in the show, we're going to introduce Candy that had a problem with kind of a bait and switch. The other thing, the most common complaint we hear over and over and over that you can't determine during the rescission period, or it would be very difficult, or by reading the contract, is the rentals, where timeshare sales agents will advise you to, if you have an every other year, you should buy a every year so you can rent it out and cover your maintenance fees. In the case of Westgate Resorts, our two guests, the three guests today are Westgate buyers, and Vacation Village, their contract states that you can rent. So there is nothing in the contract that you would know the obstacles that make this unfeasible to do that. Now, default, both Candy stopped making payments this past February, and our other guest, Tracy, she was driven to default by the advice of the sales agents. And default is hard on everyone, but we've talked several shows about Steins versus Westgate, where active duty service members are finding their security clearances in jeopardy. And so I would like to start off with a veteran who I attended at Steins versus Westgate at the appellate court, and I also attended at the lower court. And in the lower Florida court, I heard the testimony of a Westgate executive that said, well, we really want to support our veterans, so we give away 1,500 weekends a week, a year. And some of our executives are veterans. I had just received this report I'm going to share before our Westgate complaints, hoping that regulators and lawmakers, we can finally somehow find our way to them. I am a 100% disabled combat Army veteran. I served 24 years overseas in Iraq, Bosnia, and Afghanistan. Since my return, I've experienced more stress in the U.S. than when I was in war. In 2021, we bought a Westgate timeshare for $20,000 and financed $19,000. My combat-related medical condition includes idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. It's a fatal lung disease. His only option is a lung transplant, but in order to be moved up, I have to be on a ventilator. Our agents promised us that if we did not want to continue, we could request to get out of the loan with no penalty. They also said we could offset the cost of the property by renting, and they would assist us. We had to stop payments. And he works at the Pentagon, and so he still has a security clearance, and he needs that security clearance. And this is just staggering. We filed a complaint with the Florida Attorney General in April of 2022 through the Military and Veterans Assistance Program. The Attorney General responded there was no misrepresentation. Our 90-minute presentation lasted 6 hours. I have PTSD and traumatic brain injury. So it's, I have a steady diet every day. Since our last show, I heard of another Wyndham member that has received a cease and desist letter despite his report that the sales agent told him. Every sales agent he met with over the years said to buy points to rent. So with that, let's bring on our first guest, Kimberly. If we could bring Tracy on the screen. And we always start, Tracy, if somebody calls me, they don't have their facts together. And so I always start out, we need a chronological report. How did you first get involved in Westgate, and how did you end up in this horrible predicament?
Well, thanks for having me. First, I was introduced to Westgate when my husband and I took a trip to Las Vegas in 2011. We were presented with a timeshare tour and promised some free tickets to see a show. And then we kind of bought into it. At that time, we paid it off all in full on a credit card, and we paid over years, and we got it paid off, and we never used it. We used it a couple of times, one time in 2014 and one time in 2017, and then again in October of 2023. In October of 2023, we went to Orlando, Florida at Westgate Lakes, and we were presented with, we weren't utilizing the benefits that we had had for how long we've had the timeshare. So they wanted to do a presentation just to go over the benefits we were missing out on. We agreed at the end of our vacation after that week to take another tour, promised a full breakfast, owners only meetings. These breakfasts were for owners only. So we went into it, and it wasn't even a breakfast. It was packaged muffins and a little bit of old coffee. But we sat down and realized at that point we were in the middle of another timeshare presentation. We were told that we could upgrade because we were not getting the full benefits of everything we had because we were only travel partners, actually not owners. And I was kind of in like, what do you mean we're not owners? I thought we were when we bought in 2011. So no, we were presented with, we were travel partners, we had to pay, we're missing benefits by not being owners. The 90 minutes again, promise. We were not promised any free gifts or anything like that, but we were told that if we upgraded today in October, that we would become official owners and that we would utilize a lot more benefits, and we could travel anywhere we wanted to go. Our presentation ended up turning into 6 hours as well. We were left at the table multiple times to think about it after being presented with numbers that in 2011, this would have been our price if we would have bought, but they're going to hold that price for us.
What were the prices that they quoted?
They told us that in 2011, the price to buy in to be a full owner would have been $30,000 that we actually did buy into this time. But had we have not been previous owners in 2011, and we would have bought today at the market value, we would have been paying $90,000 to buy into this timeshare.
Well, and a reality check is Westgate charges $2,500 to take a timeshare back if but they cherry pick the inventory, and you can easily get, you pick up at it a week for $1 or at the most probably $1,500. So so what did you buy?
So we bought every year, then we bought into it. We bought every year, 1 week, with an exchange rate fee of no more than $149 or $169 if we wanted to travel anywhere in the world. Because I said we don't just travel to one place. Like this doesn't make sense because I don't want to go to Florida every year. And they said you don't have to come here every year. You can go anywhere. And they showed us a book that we could go anywhere in the world we wanted to go at the low exchange fee. Then I questioned the payment amount and the maintenance fees every year. And I said, I didn't think we could afford that. And he said, you don't have to worry about that. You could rent it out every year if you wanted to. You could rent out every other year. Any money that you earn from renting it out, you can put towards your payments and your maintenance fees. And basically it wouldn't cost us anything.
Did they explain the process of renting it out, how that would
Not at
work?
all. Not at all. I just said, how do you go about that? He's like, oh, you pass out certificates to your friends and family. He's like, you could post these certificates on referral certificates. For every referral you get, you earn $50. Um, we could mail them, we could post them on Facebook, social media, anything to grab the attention of somebody that even just does a presentation. If they buy in, we get more money. If they just take the presentation and take the vacation, we get $50.
And did you attempt to do that?
Yes, I did. I posted it on social media. I actually handed out 6 certificates to friends and family, and all of them were like, get out of this as soon as you can. Don't do this. I'm not interested. I don't want a timeshare. I got a lot of backlash that made me feel foolish, so I stopped doing it.
Oh, okay. Now you gave me what you had bought a 3-bedroom for $34,900. You were credited $7,200 for what you had previously purchased, and the down payment was $500, and you financed $29,700 and and when you're in the heat of the battle, but you really have to think about financing at 17%, a luxury item. So, had you noticed that 17% when you signed papers?
I did. I asked him about the 17% because as we were filling out the contract after we'd said, okay, maybe this is something that would be good for us to vacation. It sounds so good. Like, who doesn't want a vacation for free every year? But prior to thinking, he did present the 17% to me, but he did tell me, he's like, the reason it's so high is because we don't do any credit checks. We don't do background checks. We just honor your credit right off the bat and give you the loan without looking into it. He said, then what you could do is go home and you could talk to your bank about refinancing or getting a mortgage loan and a mortgage loan against this. Call us back and pay it off as a whole principal, not just a payment, but pay the principal off. And he's like, then you refinance through your bank as a mortgage and your interest rate will be lowered.
Well, I don't have to guess how that turned out, but could you named, there were 2 institutions, I think, that you
Yep, I
talked
have
to.
I have 2 banks here in my hometown that I deal with on a regular basis, and I called both of them. One was a credit union, one was a regular bank. And both of them said, we don't recognize timeshares as a mortgage. If you want to take out a loan, it would be a personal loan, which the interest rates then are 13%. So still very high, but then I would have been completely stuck with it. And it didn't make sense to go and do that. Plus, I still would have been on the hook for all the maintenance fees. So I started looking into it and like, this isn't going to work for me. I can't afford this. I can't afford, 17% to 13%. It is a little bit different, but not by much in the
And
overall look.
when you first reached out to us, you actually reached out to a bankruptcy lawyer only
Yes.
because of the timeshare.
Yes, just because of the timeshare. I have very good credit. I have very good history with all my payments, everything that I've ever done. And I was sinking with these monthly timeshare payments, then putting the payments itself on a credit card. And once I got the maintenance bill, I started looking into it. That's when I found your Facebook page, but I had already reached out to a bankruptcy lawyer asking, can I just file for bankruptcy on this? I really need it gone. And I did not do the consult with the bankruptcy lawyer. All he said was, yes, you can. Um, and then I actually set up a call to have a consult with him, but I reached out to Westgate first to be like, hey, what are my chances? What are my opportunities to get rid of this, to resell this, and Westgate then told me that I could resell it, but they would not do anything to help me resell. They would not do anything to help the progress of it sell, that I had to completely find the buyer on my own. And then once I did find the buyer, I had to present the application and send it to Westgate for approval. If they approved it, then I would pay the title fees to have it transferred.
And people have reported that that process has taken 4, 5, 6 months or longer.
Yes.
Now, as our prior guest, attorney Mike Finn had explained, no one should file bankruptcy if timeshare is your only debt, because since it's worthless, it will not be liquidated and it becomes an abandoned asset. Now, Candy is going to be joining us soon, but before we bring Candy on, I'd like to bring back a friend of ours, Carl, who has been a prior guest, and he has, with some other volunteers, Carl had launched a public records request. Hi, Carl.
Hello.
And that they determined that there were 585 complaints with the Florida Attorney General, which is more than enough to launch a complaint. And over nearly 50% of those complaints were about renting. Now, we've had Carl on before, so we're not going to go over what his outcome and his situation is, but he and 2 other owners actually held up signs protesting out front of Westgate's annual meeting. And of course, we're treated like mosquitoes or flies at a picnic, but the Orlando Sentinel showed up and reported on it, and it actually went viral. So that was pretty good fun. So what we're going to have Kim do is I've asked Kim, after hearing what happened to Tracy, and you will not believe what happened to Candy, could you just give us a comparison here, Kim, and run a minute of the Queen of Versailles, and then Carl will tell us a little bit about the new musical that's been extended by popular demand. So let's hear that.
Hey, you know what? Let's all go support the musical that supports the people that screw us while they talk about poor pitiful people. How many people have their vomit bags from the airplane? Okay. You got any tomatoes that you want to share? Let's see. I just had it up here. Don't tell me. Here it is. All right.
Nothing's really normal about this life.
We're in line to do $1 billion in sales for the year. We're on top of the world. And it came to a screeching halt.
The market fell over 700 points.
I would say it's touch and go right now.
We don't talk about financial. I just have to watch movies to find out what's going on in my life.
Everything changes.
This is almost like a riches to rags story. She knows we need to cut back, but she's still compulsive.
What time is it now?
Well, if I could afford a watch, I would tell you. Bankers are like vultures.
Our big problem is Vegas.
Our lenders have made it very clear that he'll have more money than he knows what to do with. He can go back to building his house if he turns over this building.
Over my dead body.
You can buy the palace that timeshare mogul David Siegel already wants to sell.
Just think of the bright side. You might not have to clean this house.
The American dream is raising way up above what you started with, and that is what she has done.
When you're down is when you find out who your true friends are.
You get strength from your marriage?
No.
I'm in this fantasy world, until reality hits.
Oh.
There you go, folks. They're complaining about poor pitiful me, and but you know what? They can file bankruptcy on their properties. You can't file bankruptcy on the properties they sell you because it's not really properties. It's vacation ownership interest. Go look at your deed. So there's no real property tied to the deed these people sell you. And that's and on, I've dealt with a couple of them recently, or and I'll say, well, send me a contract. I'll have my attorneys look at it. Oh no, we can't send you a contract. Every situation is different. No, send me a contract. So but Queen of Versailles, the play is going to start July
16th. 16th.
Are we going to have out there and protesters?
I'm going to be out there protesting on the first day, and I'm trying to get people to come out and protest with us. I think right now I have 4 or 5 people.
You do?
But I don't call it the Queen of Versailles. I call it the Queen of the Lie. Because
that's right, Queen of the Lie.
They all lie to us for what should be different.
Well, and they pocketed the money for themselves, and they're taking money. I call it blood money. They're taking money from people who are suffering, who need to get out of these situations. They haven't owned up to what you bought, like in Tracy's situation. But let's help you out a little bit. On the day that you're going out, I'll set up a link, and you can beam in, and we can join you. I'll and get little banners, and we'll do a virtual protest with you.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Merry Christmas.
I would love to go live.
Irene's in the middle of moving, so hopefully she will have, well, as fast as she does things, she will be. Everyone who's here, anyone who has been on our TV show, let's do a reunion. We all need to support this and support each other, because it's hard when you're on your own fighting these people. And something I've learned a lot of times, nobody cares until it happens to them. Nobody cares about the laws, cares if it's screwing people until it happens to them. And then sometimes when they get it fixed, they just move on, turn their head, and don't even look at the fact that if they just step up a little bit, we can make a change for everyone. So,
yes.
Well, and one thing that's been really good about our Facebook groups, they started a Westgate Timeshare Hostages Facebook group at the end of 2021. They already have over 3,600 members. And we have, and Tracy, I know that you have to go back to work. So Carl, if you could stay with us, and we will bid you adieu.
Tracy, thank you for your story.
Yes.
It's a horror story. It really is.
Thank you and good luck, and I'll continue to follow you until this can be resolved.
We'll help work. I mean, but also I want to go change the laws, so that's where everyone can help.
Yes.
So, all right, thank you and have a good time.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay, great. And I see that Destination Timeshare, we've asked him to be a guest. I don't know who that is, but he's been chatting with us, and we appreciate that. He just chatted that Jackie Siegel has also been on the Brave TV show Below Deck at least twice.
I posted it for you. Thanks for catching that. Sometimes it's hard to run everything, but Nick's so much better at this than I am. But so Jackie Siegel has also been on the Bravo TV show Below Deck at least twice. So, but the thing is that, they're making money off of their grief, hoping people are going to be sucked in, but they made their fortunes off of people's blood and grief. So, I mean, come on. Do we,
Well, I wanted you to show that the 90,000 square foot palace with 30 bathrooms and an ice skating rink before we bring Candy on. So if we could go ahead and bring Candy on stage, and you will
I'll get the palace up while you talk to Candy. So
yeah, you will not believe this.
Hi, Candy.
Hi.
Yeah, so we had Tracy was from Wisconsin, and Candy is next door in Michigan, across the pond. So Candy, in addition to the rental pitch that you heard, go ahead, as we always start, and tell us how you first got involved. And I want to just keep hammering on this. What happened to you could not have been prevented by reading the contract or by the rescission period. So, because you had a beautiful experience the first time you stayed, correct?
Yes.
Which we are going to describe what we call a bait and switch.
They threw out the line and reeled it in.
Yes, they did, and in no uncertain terms. We had went down to Florida for our daughter's wedding, and and they offered them a very good price. Stay there in 14, and then gave them a certificate to come back in 16. So we went back, and me and my husband both were like, "We're not doing this." We kept telling ourselves, "We're not doing this. We're not doing this." Well, we did it. But they made it sound so incredibly awesome, and it was nothing. What they said and what reality was two completely different things. When we talked to them in 16, when we returned with the certificate, they told us that it would only be 90 minutes, but obviously it was almost 8 hours. My husband actually left and went golfing and came back, so it was just me and my daughter there. But anyways, we listened, and one of the things that really struck a chord with me is we had a little infant grandson. I shouldn't say infant, he was 2, and they have a nice water park there. And so we were like, this would be awesome. This would be awesome. We could bring him down every year, and he'd have some place to play. And our main concern was, will we have the same unit that we are in now? Because we were just outside of the water park. And oh, yes. You will buy, the unit you buy will be near the water park. We're going to show you the unit, but it's not the unit you'll buy because they're in it, right? People are in it right now. But this one will be just like it. But yours will be by the water park. And I was very adamant about that because of our child. And yeah, the water park never came up again, ever. We were never by the water park. And there was absolutely no place in that contract that would have protected us with that. And every year when we booked, we argued, we fought. Our booking was like a 20-minute ordeal of nothing but arguments because we wanted to be by the water park. They said, no, that wasn't for us. That was for the new people that they were going to sell their park to, their timeshares to.
Well, and you had mentioned when we talked earlier, before we went on stage, that you were placed outside of the whole complex.
Well, they tried to. Yes, they did. They tried to do that to us. I just want to say before I go into that, we have not ever stayed there again without issues. And one of our final issues was we came to check in, and they told us where we were going to be, and we're like, where is that? And they're like, well, that new part right outside the gates. And we're like, no, we're owners, and we're not going outside the gate. We're going near the water park. No, you're not going near the water park for sure. And the only room we have available is outside the gates. And I'm like, no. We're owners. We're owners, and we have a place inside here by the water park. And, of course, that was the thing every year was the water park. But finally, my son-in-law got quite loud, well, maybe very loud, and started making a fool of himself and us. And they finally relented, and they put us in a place inside the gates. But if you're wondering what's so bad about being outside the gates, it's just every time you come in, you didn't have a trolley out there. And every time you came in, you had to go through the security gates. And then you had to walk in, and you had to find a place to park, which is very limited. And we shouldn't have had to put up with that. We were owners. And so as it was, we ended up inside. But they tried their hardest to put us outside as owners. And that word really don't mean a whole lot in their life. Owners, that don't mean anything actually. But yeah, they tried to put us outside the gates, and we were like, no, that ain't happening. So,
Well, I think I was most horrified by your mold story.
and then, well, that was the first year when we came back. We came back for our first actual visit after we owned, so-called. And my daughter didn't feel good all week. It was like she couldn't put her finger on it, but she's like, the minute we got in there, she was like, I just don't feel good, and I've got headaches, and I can't breathe, and I'm like, man, you were perfectly fine yesterday. What's going on? And so finally, it just so happened that towards the end of our stay, my grandson rolled his truck, a little matchbox truck, under the couch, and we couldn't reach it. So we had to move the couch. Well, my husband and my son-in-law moved the couch, and the whole wall, the length and the height of the couch, was nothing but black mold. And we took a scraping of it, and I called security, and of course, 3 people came down thinking they were big shots, and I said, we don't want to be here, and we want out of here, and so this is a reason. You let us out of here, and we won't mention the mold to anybody. And they're like, well, you can mention the mold because mold's not an issue down here. And I'm like, well, let me tell you, in Michigan, this place would have been closed down for mold. And he said, well, in Florida, people expect mold. And I said, my daughter's sick. But because we did not go to the hospital, that didn't matter. They didn't consider her sick. And they didn't want to move us. And I said, listen. And now it was like, do we really want to move? Because it was before we leave anyways. No, I'm making them move us. So they actually gave us a different room overnight, but it took a lot of work. Then when they left, I went to get my scraping of mold, and one of them had went into the kitchen area and took it and removed it out of the. After we had moved, then we couldn't get back in to get another scraping, and it was like, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable that they first of all had mold. That tells you how good they don't clean between guests, but that it was a common occurrence to them, that it was a big deal. And how can you do that? How can you? It's just, I just don't understand it.
Oh, Destination Timeshare is asking, Candy, what resort was this? Thank you for asking that. I forgot to mention. Was it Westgate Lakes?
No, it was the town center. I always get it
Town
confused.
Center.
It's the biggest one. Their biggest. It's I think it's Town Center, but it's Westgate.
That's in Orlando.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other thing you mentioned that just floored me was Towelgate.
Yes. So, I know maybe I'm asking a lot, but I'm an owner, and if that was my unit, I would make sure I had towels, right? I mean, you just make sure you have towels. So our unit, I want to go on to say this. Our unit is actually a 2-bed, 1 loft, sleeps 10, which is a very important 10. And so we got in there, and we were hot. We just went to take showers the first day, and my daughter's like, you got any towels over there? And I said, well, yeah, we got 2, and they're premium, so we're not letting them go. She said, well, we only have 2 over here, and there's 4 of us. And I'm like, well, good luck on that one. Anyways, 4 towels and 4 washcloths. Now, Carl would probably think that's not such a bad thing because Carl's a man, but women are cloth, right? we can maybe make do with one towel for 2 days, but no. So I called them. I said, we need towels. Well, how many do you have? We have 4. Okay. Well, the maids come the middle of the week and they'll bring you more. I said, no. We have a 10-person unit and we have 6 people in this unit. We need towels. 4 towels is not going to work for us. And she's like, well, you have to wait till the middle of the week when they do the cleaning and they'll give you new towels. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. Well, I got nowhere, which I never did. Every year it was something and we never got anywhere with them idiots. But they didn't do it. But so the next morning we were on our way out to breakfast and they must bring them up, the maids, their big bags of goodies, and put them in front of the units that are supposed to be vacated. So we just walked over and picked up one and took it back to our room. And
I do that all the time. I have lots of their towels.
we picked up and we had towels. But my point is, you run a 10 sleeping unit, you should have 10 sleeping towels. And you also shouldn't have to do laundry every day for towels.
No.
That's just my opinion. But yeah, that was
And then what happened when you reached out to Westgate, of course, on the water part, on the mold, on the towels, and then here we are. Here is the Kim just posted on here the musical, The Queen of Versailles, from July 16th, I think, to April 15th. It's been extended.
July 16th to August 25th.
Oh, it's been extended by popular demand. And if you listen to the YouTube below the picture, it's a song early in the show where she's lying under a tree.
Stephen Schwartz, Michael Arden, and Lindsay Ferrantino, and Bill Damashki, the producer. And they called me and they said, we have an idea for a show for you. Have you seen the documentary movie, The Queen of Versailles? Would you like to do it? Then Stephen came to my theater in Oklahoma. I was doing my camp there and he played me the first song and I was like, yes, please. So I thought it might be nice just for tonight to debut one of the songs from Queen of Versailles, and I, of course, needed help with that, so I've invited Stephen Schwartz to join me.
Thanks, guys. So the song we're going to do for you tonight happens pretty early in the show. It's before Jackie Siegel becomes Jackie Siegel, and she's still teenage Jackie Mallory, and she's growing up in a small town in upstate New York, and every Friday night, she and her parents gather around their television set, and they watch Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And then she goes and lies out on her asphalt roof, and she looks up at the stars and she dreams.
Here lies Jackie Mallory, minimum wage salary, with a tiny life and great big dreams. She has no clue how to achieve. Growing up in a town called Endwell, where the only way things end well is if you find a way to leave. Tonight the kids will all be hanging at the old.
Okay, that's enough of that.
Makes me sick.
Well, ironically, Jackie Siegel, I believe, was born in a Binghamton, New York hospital, and it's quite possible that I was giving birth to my daughter right around the same time. And so I researched it a little bit. She was on billboards across the country for not cigar, maybe rum, I don't know, some kind of ad. I don't know the story of how she got together with David Siegel. And again, I have no problem for people that have achieved great wealth. But when you just hear story after story, we still have a little bit of time, Carl. If you could go ahead and just briefly tell us the 4-bedroom with the, I forgot what racetrack that you were trying to stay at in Orlando, but give us a little bit of a history of what happened to you.
Okay. Every year we would go down to Orlando Speed World for the World Streetcar Shootout. And it was usually the second weekend of December. So we would want to stay Wednesday to Wednesday. So we did the tour. We were in Orlando. We did the tour at Westgate, and they told us that we could check in every Wednesday to Wednesday, no additional fee. They went through the whole thing about how we could rent it out to make money if we didn't go. And we bought a 4-bedroom, 4-bath lock off. So it's one big unit. We could all go from room to room. And they started at $90,000. And we went down to $40,000. And we all signed up and everything was fine. And they said it would be an interest-free loan. Would be an interest-free loan, but what they did was they switched it. They added 3 months of interest for $1,500 per month for the first 3 payments. Then it would have been interest-free.
Wait a minute, say that again. I have an MBA, but I didn't quite catch that.
I'm sorry. They said it would be a totally interest-free loan. And we said, okay, fine, we'll sign up for it. But the first 3 payments included $1,500 of interest. So they
each month?
Each month, $1,500 of interest for the first 3 months. So they were getting $4,500 in interest, and then the payments would have been reduced. So
okay, now Kim is probably going to go through the roof with this. Now, was that wouldn't have been in the contract? That would have been in the purchase and sale agreement. Was that disclosed, that $4,500 in interest, or did it say interest free, or what did the contract say?
I forget what the contract said, because afterwards I just hit the roof about it and I just paid the whole thing off. All right. So I'd have to look to see if it did say it or not, but I don't think it did, because I forget what our payments were. We're still going back a good 3-4 years. But when I seen what the bill was, I said, no, I'm not paying him this. I just paid the whole thing off. And then my friends wound up paying me off in a long period of time. But then they, when I was talking to them, I said, well, we could still check in Wednesday to Wednesday. And they said, yeah, it would be an additional like $100 and something. And I said, no.
That's not what they said.
Yeah, I said, no, it was on the recording. I asked this when we did settlement, and you sign the paper and it says, you're being recorded. And I asked a bunch of questions because I was just sitting there, and my wife and my 3 friends were doing all the paperwork. So I asked all these questions, and the settlement person said, yeah, you could say Wednesday to Wednesday, no additional fee. So after the lady told me it would be, I think, $149, I said, well, I want the recording. And when I asked for the recording, they said, well, I could tell you, you're going to have to get a subpoena, but we did look and the recording's not available. Now, when talking to different people, the different people said they don't record anymore. They stopped at the beginning of the year. So there's always a different story with Westgate. So we paid it off. And since then, we've separated our deed from our 3 friends. And people can do that, or you can transfer the deed to a friend or, friend, relative. Don't matter to me if it's a true friend or relative, but it's $450. So $300 to transfer the deed, and then Westgate gets $150. So say I wanted to gift my week to somebody, it's $450.
Really?
Yes, we just did that. We separated it from our 3 other friends. So Patty and I are, we have our own separate deed. And it's not the $2,500 or the $3,000. Those fees, $300 and $150. Anybody could, if they need the information, they could ask me. We'll give them the company that does it for them. But I think they're all connected. But because it says something about Green Spoon Martyr.
That's their law firm. And what I just, Kim, you won't believe it, but when there's 585 complaints on, and a lot of Better Business Bureau complaints. And when Carl asked a representative or a paralegal at Greenspoon Martyr, what about all of these complaints? She says, oh, those are just exit companies. As if, Candy and Tracy and Carl would be happy campers if it wasn't for these exit companies that are convincing them that they don't like Westgate. So, and Candy, I forgot to ask you, you did stop making payments, correct?
Yes, it's been a year ago now. We, February of 23. Yes, February of 23, we stopped.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just this past February.
No,
Okay.
It's been over a year, February of 23.
We hear about people being bombarded with collection calls and I always advise people to turn the predator into the prey. Listen to this interview and but you have not gotten a lot of calls, right?
Yeah, I'm going to say that's correct, but I just want to preface that with I don't answer a phone call if I don't know who it is. But I did call them one time, or they did call me one time, I should say. And right after we quit paying, and they said, you haven't made a payment, and what can we do to help you? And I said, there's not a thing you can do to help me. I want out of my contract. I said, we've owned since 16, and every time we come, there's a problem. Every time. And you're aware of it. You deny it, but you know what's happening, and we want out. And all you have to do is get us out, and everybody will go their own separate ways. And they said, well, that's not going to happen, but I'll document that so we won't keep bothering you. And I said, no, just let us out and we'll be fine. And well, that's that. I can't say if they're going to let you out or not, but I'll I'll document it and we'll stop bothering you. So as far as I know, they've stopped, but we get calls all the time up here, and I don't, it could be them, but I don't answer but I'm not getting messages either. So
did you get dinged on your credit reporting?
Well, yes, it did. That's sort of confusing to me. But yes, it hit my husband's, and that was another thing. I don't know if we even got time to discuss.
Didn't it hit yours? It just hit his? Was he the only one?
It didn't hit my daughters. It didn't hit my son-in-laws, and it didn't hit mine.
So all 4 of you were on the deed?
Yeah, all 4 of us are on the deed. They talked us into that. And then not only did they talk us into that, but they talked us into moving me and my husband into first and second place, because when you buy through them, supposedly you have this protection of death. And because we were the 2 oldest ones, because they can only let 2 people be in that, it was smartest for us to be the top 2, because when we die, then the unit would automatically be paid off.
Was that actually in the contract?
I have no clue.
Probably not. They probably were moving things.
I didn't get a real actual contract, a paper contract, until this past, I think I told Irene like maybe February of this year, January of this year, because Irene had me request a paper copy. When we signed our stuff, I don't know what you would call her, but the girl that was doing all the paper part of it, was really hot. She was mad at our salesperson, and I was supposed to leave an hour ago, and you're holding me up, and yada yada yada. They'd only let us have one briefcase, and they'd only let us have one computer, and and she was really very rude because she wanted to go home because she was there after hours because it was an all day thing. And we never did get a paper copy until after I hooked up with Irene, and she said, well, you have to get a copy of your actual contract. Before that, all it was on was a stupid little CD that
who has a CD player anymore?
Yeah.
It's on a little credit card like this too.
Well, no. This is Westgate.
Don't know it because it's slid into a folder, and so a lot of people just think it's a credit card with the company name on it. Here, I'll do this with the company name on it. So, I mean, you don't realize that that card is a flipper, right?
Oh.
Well, I believe Westgate is.
See that, but I will tell you this: even all the paperwork that apparently I saw on the desk wasn't on here, and all the paperwork I had looked for wasn't on here either. So, I think that it's just all deceptive. The whole process is deceptive.
Absolutely.
Property is deceptive. To say that they can put you into foreclosure or ruin your credit over a deed is deceptive because the deed is about a vacation owner interest. It has nothing to do with property. Nothing.
Right.
And I think that they need to change the laws and it take 30 days to close on a piece of timeshare property. No ifs, ands, or buts. 30 days.
Right.
And not close while you're on vacation and you can run out and go and then you only have 3 days rescission period, but that's before you even get home from vacation. No. 30 days before they allow a closing, just like they do most homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Destination Timeshare had commented about how it's almost impossible to get someone to accept a deed, like if Carl's has paid off and he wants this, that they drag that process out for so long. And also they were one of I think the only timeshare developer that required 50% of the broker's commission to be paid directly to Westgate. And so there are no licensed timeshare brokers that function like a traditional sales agent, a real estate agent that doesn't charge you up front. But they, this is just, I just hope that
people don't realize the cost in canceling either. So they don't go over all of this, but they can take all that money away from you in 15 minutes flat. 15 minutes after they spend 8 hours convincing you. And in 15 minutes, they can put a new credit card in your name and charge, $20,000 or more to it. Put your name on a mortgage that locks you in for life with an HOA fee that you didn't really understand. But if you get it back, you're going to spend 90 days before you even get anything back. So remember that, once your money's gone with people like this, it's gone. But if they're not willing to give you a contract to walk out with and review with your own attorneys, don't do business. Don't do business with people like that. Walk away. Oh, it's the best deal ever. You're never going to get it again. You know what? Things like this have been around 100 years. We'll see it again. You can't sell me today something better that I won't find tomorrow. And you know what? You can go on eBay and buy timeshares for $1. Just saying.
Yeah.
Well, and before we leave today, I want to really issue a warning about unsolicited calls to sell or rent your timeshare. And we don't have time. We have only 5 minutes left. But Kim had sent me 2 recordings that were just unbelievable about that RCI and interval. You can get a week for $3.99. They're called last call or something, but for that one agent to tell you that you could make all of this money by turning around and renting those weeks out. First of all, I don't think RCI or II understands that. And the other is the crafty, sneaky, the other recording where Kim and I were saying she said she was with Hilton Reservations, and I said no, she didn't. She said she was with Reservations, and she was calling about your Hilton. I said, you see how she covered herself. So it's like, you know.
But I've had 5 or 6 phone calls from her in over a period of time, which I think is funny because she doesn't even remember she has spoke with me. I get her name. But the other person where his deceptiveness was really, really bad was it wasn't that he was selling me, something for $3.99. According to my contract, which I've never found it in my contract, I'm allowed to buy up to 6 extra weeks, and they will resell them for me. So if I buy them at $3.99, they already have them, according to him, pre-sold.
Yes, pre-sold.
At first, it started out for $1,500 each, and then by the end of the conversation, in the beginning, if I bought total, I would get $6,500. By the end of the conversation, do you realize if you did this now, you would make $8,900? And I'm like, boy, that math changed really fast. So what he was selling me was weeks that I apparently am allowed to buy that they've already pre-sold, and if I buy it now for $3.99 in 90 days, they will write me a check for $8,900.
It's a complete scam. And Kim, I asked Candy and Tracy to watch Sandra's report from last week that was so heartbreaking, and where she can't find a place to live because of buying Wyndham. And so I got on the phone with Wyndham and Sandra, and I got very nice people that are willing to help. But the problem is she has to send them a written report, and she doesn't know how to attach a document.
Well, she doesn't
So she was driving from library to library, and then she found somebody and they sent it to the wrong person at Wyndham. So she's still today desperate. I mean,
and this is a woman that they managed to sell more points to. I have a problem with that. I have a problem.
Especially when she specifically asked them not to run a credit check. So I just wanted to give a little bit of update on that. I see we have about a minute left here. And one thing we want to promote is members supporting members. And so I always like to go backstage a couple days ahead of time and introduce the guests. So Candy and I, a few days ago, and Tracy, I said, well, let's just practice for 15 minutes. And before you knew it, it was an hour. And and Tracy is devastated. I mean, to have reached out to a bankruptcy lawyer, and she has just stopped payments. So to have Candy is like, no big deal. Well, we can't always say it's no big deal, and we don't know what's going to happen or 1 year or 2 years from now. But I just hope, Carl, maybe you ought to send the link to this interview to your friend.
We'll post some links. Everyone, thank you for watching us. We've got more stories for you next week. Please, support members, but support us so that we can stop the deceptive acts that are happening. Have a blessed week.
Thank you.